Thank you, Amber. So I'm really excited to be talking with you all today about Lakebed 2030 and how we can reach mission success. I'm going to be speaking to you as someone who cares deeply about how we connect with each other as scientists and technologists, but also from the lens of how we connect with the public to make sure that this mission and the importance of it is raised beyond just the group in this room. But so we could go to the next slide. So when I'm planning ocean expeditions, normally focused on the deep sea, usually we're given an area of operation. So if we look at this beautiful satellite image of the Great Lakes, and we were going to plan an expedition to characterize it, we might ask ourselves what has been done before. And certainly the first bit of data that I always try to collect is the mapping data, the foundation of everything that we do as scientists and managers in a lot of cases. So next slide. This is the NOAA bathymetric gap analysis from January 2021, which shows that in their database, only about 5% of the Great Lakes has been mapped. So it certainly doesn't give us a lot of room to go on for pre-planning a mission, and we would know that we would need to go into the Great Lakes region with some mapping systems. And in fact, we were asked to come work in Thunder Bay, and that's what I'm going to talk with you about today, how to transition, or how we were able to transition working at sea in the deep ocean and the work that we do there, building partnerships and collaborations to Lake Huron in particular. Next slide. There are some really beautiful maps of the Great Lakes. This one is by Noah Glurl, I believe, and shows some very rich detail of the glacial history of Lake Huron. It shows that beautiful land bridge between Michigan and Canada. But for scientists and for planning a lot of the work that we do in understanding the lake conditions, we really need higher resolution maps. Most of this, I believe, was gridded about 2 kilometers resolution. So really to do benthic characterization, habitat mapping, understanding where the shipwrecks are in the region, we need to obviously come in and map with modern technologies and at higher resolution. And as well, most of the area that is unmapped is less than 200 meters, so we know that that can be a very time-consuming task. Next slide. And that's why I think the Lakebed 2030 initiative is critical to completing the map of the Great Lakes. It's a great way to get groups of people together, both scientists and technologists, but also to really rally people to this cause. And that's going to be critical because as the Seabed or Lakebed 2030 initiative has said, it's going to take at least 7 years and $200 million at current technologies to map the Great Lakes. And so we certainly need to come up with some creative solutions and work together to accomplish this goal. And I think what we can do with Lakebed 2030 is identify new collaborations, seek new partners, not only inside this room, this virtual room, but also outside. And from being able to find data that's been sitting in someone's archive for years to identifying new technologies that can help accelerate the rate at which we collect lakebed mapping data, this is going to be critical to the mission. Next slide. So as the Chief Scientist of Ocean Exploration Trust, I've been so lucky to get to work in many of the regions shown here on the 130 expeditions that Nautilus has conducted since 2009. These partnerships that we've formed with different scientists and technologists have allowed us to explore deep areas of the ocean with new technologies and bring scientists along with us through telepresence. We're actually going to connect with Nautilus, which is shown in that image, a little bit later at the end of my talk, and hear about their current mission testing new technologies to improve the way we map and explore the ocean. And that's been critical. Building partnerships has been critical to the success. When you're exploring the deep sea, you never know what you're going to find. So being able to bring in scientists remotely has been very important for identifying things and knowing what to do next, as well as working with technologists to bring out new technologies to better sense these areas that most of us will only get to see once. Next slide. So Ocean Exploration Trust was asked to come to Lake Huron and work with the Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary because of the partnerships we'd had working with the Office of National Marine Sanctuary, largely along the west coast of the United States, but also in American Samoa and Papahānaumokuākea in the northwestern Hawaiian Islands, we were asked to come help map Lake Huron, which is only 16% mapped, but of course Nautilus wasn't going to be able to make it to Lake Huron, unfortunately. So we had to think about how we could transition or move some of our technology to the Lake Huron and Thunder Bay assets, or National Marine Sanctuary assets, to have this mission be successful. And one of the great things that happened was we were working with University of New Hampshire Center for Coastal Ocean Mapping, who've been a partner with us for a long time in our shipboard mapping systems. And if we go to the next slide, they actually were also working on the development of an autonomous surface vehicle with the NOAA Office of Coast Survey and needed to have a field test of it in advance of coming out on Nautilus with us later in 2019. So it was a really fortuitous collaboration that they were able to come to Lake Huron and bring their ASV Ben. We also brought a pole-mounted EM2040 sonar that we mounted on the RV Storm to conduct some of the mapping. And this mission really grew. So from Office of National Marine Sanctuary contacting us and putting us in touch with the research coordinator and superintendent of Thunder Bay, we were able to add on additional partners as the needs kind of grew, as we identified what the needs were for these missions. And these happened in over 2 weeks in 2019 and about a month in 2021. Next slide. The National Marine Sanctuary, the Thunder Bay staff really helped provide the foundation for why we were there, what we were doing, what those scientific goals were. And so they helped us identify areas that were high priority of the lakebed for mapping for 2 reasons. One, identifying archaeological marine heritage sites, and also identifying habitat to help in habitat classification. So while we were out there with the autonomous surface vehicle and mapping systems, we were collecting bathymetry, the water column data, and the backscatter data, and processing those to provide that information to the sanctuary for management and just understanding of the lake bed. But then bringing in an academic partner like the University of New Hampshire was really a great way to test out new technologies in a field setting that was a little bit more benign than the at-sea setting that they were going to be working with us in off of the Southern California region from Nautilus. It allowed them to bring all of the gear they wanted, to bring extra personnel to the site, and to really put the ASV through its paces while collecting valuable data for science and management. And in the second year, we also tested some teleoperations, which I'll talk more about, but this connection of the field site to remote sites, whether that's other academics, other researchers, or technologists, or the public, is really central to the success of these missions as well. Education and outreach are really important tenets of our program and the National Marine Sanctuary programs, and we were able to do a lot of local, on-the-ground support of schools and bringing in students, but also reach the broader public more globally and explain the importance of lakebed mapping to them through the Nautilus Live website. Next slide. And so, as I mentioned, the partnerships just kept growing as we understood the needs that the Thunder Bay Sanctuary had for this project and their goals. And it was great to be able to start with a couple of partners and really see how we can make a project that was greater than the sum of its individual parts. So from adding in the University of New Hampshire for their technical and surveying and operational expertise, to also working with the University of Rhode Island. Dwight Coleman was one of the people who worked with Dr. Ballard, who's the president of the trust, way back before Ocean Exploration Trust was formed in the year 2000 to do some side scan sonar of Lake Huron and identify some of the wrecks that helped with the forming of the sanctuary. And so he was able to come out and lead the expedition this past year, which was fantastic, but also his team back on shore at the Inner Space Center provided production support. And then the sanctuary was also very interested in having characterization of some of the maritime heritage targets. And so we couldn't bring our ROVs from Nautilus out with us. They just wouldn't be suitable for the shallow lake conditions. But working with Thunder Bay and teams, we were able to identify the group at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, to come in and conduct some ROV dives. But then again, this is a project that involved a lot of ground support as well. So NOAA OCS, various other NOAA offices, and the US Coast Guard provided both personnel and platform support for this project. Next slide, please. This is the autonomous surface vessel Ben. You will learn more about the benthic explorer and navigator from Aaron Heffern, who's going to talk about this project in detail tomorrow. But the ASV was, again, being developed at the University of New Hampshire with Office of Coast Survey funding, and we were able to bring it out to Lake Huron to do mapping of the lakebed, allowing the testing of an autonomous technology, but also the development of perception and sensory technologies that can improve autonomous systems. So this was both used as a survey tool to collect important scientific data, but also to help improve autonomy efforts. One of the things they added this year was CTD. We know the importance of collecting sound velocity data on site, and that was something they were testing out as well. So they're doing both software and hardware development on these systems. Next slide. The other great thing about working in Lake Huron was the ability for them to drive their mobile command center from New Hampshire to Alpena, Michigan, and set up on the public dock. They were able to work within 18 kilometers. That was about the range for being able to communicate with the autonomous surface vehicle. And they were also able to, again, bring a much larger team than they would on a vessel with limited berths. So you can bring in different teams of people and also conduct training, have school groups come by and explain what's happening. The public would stop in and ask what was going on. And so it was a really great outreach opportunity, as well as a great opportunity to just learn from each other and get the system ready for going to sea. Next slide, please. And of course, it was important that we be in touch with a boat that was on standby. And this also shows, this slide shows off the flexibility of the team. So here, research coordinator at Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary, Stephanie Gandola, is piloting the boat that's out there taking CTD casts on site. And Katie Lohr, who's shown holding the CTD, works with the NOAA headquarters in Washington and was on a site visit, but very willing to help. So it's still important for us to have that boat for those auxiliary data collections. Next slide. And we took a lot of CTD casts. This is from the past year. We took in the first week about 50 because there is such variability in the surface sound velocity. And of course, the other important aspect of this is that the folks who are monitoring data onshore are able to detect when we need to do sound velocity measurements and also change the survey parameters on the fly, pull in the swath width or change the line spacing so that we can get a good surface. Next slide. And then another aspect is being able to share the data in real time around the world. This is something that those of us on land are very familiar with. Cell phones and internet make it really easy to see data from anywhere and to talk with people in real time. But as you get to more remote locations, of course, with autonomous surface vehicles or otherwise, it's great to be able to plug in experts. So here, Roland Arsenault from University of New Hampshire, who's a software developer, actually was on site for the first week of the expedition. And then he went back to his home in New Hampshire, but was able to watch the progress and help the team remotely. And so the goal here is that we can transition more of the technical support to land, particularly when you are operating off of a vessel and you have limited capacity for people. But also you can bring in students and even offer things like internships for people who couldn't come to the site but could access the data remotely. Next slide. And of course, that also ties into telepresence being used for more public outreach and more broad, just information for the public. While we were at Thunder Bay, there was a great interest from local media and local students and teachers who would come by and talk with the team. We were able to participate in a day at the MATE ROV competition in 2019 to talk with students there about autonomous surface vehicles and mapping. But we also wanted to reach a wider audience, and we're able to do that again through some of the live event series that we have that are hosted on YouTube and Facebook, and will still be up as part of a long-standing expedition page so that people can go back and understand the different partners who are involved and how all of these pieces come together to support lakebed mapping. Next slide. And so the outcomes of the 2021 mission are really beyond the statistics here. We were able to map the lakebed, to do ROV characterization dives on maritime heritage targets, but we were also able to build a team of participants that were a range of expertise and also a range of backgrounds, from academic partners to government and nonprofit partners, from students through expert level. And I think that's really, really important, as well as outreach to the public to help them understand why what we're doing is so valuable to them. One of the things I didn't mention earlier was just that the maps that we produce sometimes of the lakebed, the beautiful map I showed of Lake Huron that Noah Glurl had produced, give, I think, the public a false sense of the amount that's been mapped, or that the fact that the map is complete. And so it's important as scientists sometimes that we're able to describe the level of detail that we can achieve or that we need to achieve to do the things that, such as habitat mapping or modeling or other things that we need better mapping data for. Next slide, please. And so my final slide before we connect live with Nautilus is to just say that looking over the agenda, hearing about all of the exciting talks today, the keys to success for this mission are definitely in this virtual room that we're in. There's a great opportunity for all of the different folks who are here representing science and technology and different walks of research and academics, government, nonprofit, to work together and maybe meet new partners here and figure out ways to bring in new partners from the outside. I think the only way we're going to achieve a map of the Great Lakes is to bring in new technologies and also bring in new partners and share the importance of what we're doing with the public and share what we're doing, our successes and challenges, with each other. So with that, I'd like to see if Lindsay and Aaron, who are actually part of the Thunder Bay mission, are on the line.
Hey, Nicole, thanks for the talk.
Hi, Aaron. How are you?
Aaron's okay? Hi. We're great. How are you?
Good to see you guys. So Amber, if you don't mind closing out the slides, I think that might make Aaron and Lindsay a little bit larger on the screen. So I'm hoping, Aaron and Lindsay, you guys were actually on site in Thunder Bay. Was there anything you wanted to add about those two missions and maybe how the partnerships and the technologies that we used really were key to the success there?
Sure. It really was great. This year in particular, we had a lot of visitors from various branches of NOAA who had either experience with the 2040 system and autonomous vessels, or autonomous vessel experience. And it was really just totally collaborative, pulling each other's brains, figuring out when we had issues. And that was fantastic. And then, of course, as you mentioned, just the great partnership with Thunder Bay, making sure that the community knew what was going on, that everybody knew all the efforts that were happening, and that it was really well advertised. It was just, as you said, a really great collaboration. And so fantastic that we got to be able to then use ROV mission to look at these archaeological assets. So really great. And I will be talking about at least the mapping portion and a little bit of the ROV portion tomorrow at 1:45 if anybody wants to come for that. But for now, we thought we'd talk a little bit about what's going on, if that works.
Yeah, please do tell us where you are and tell us what you're doing.
Yeah, okay. We're off the in the Channel Islands, just northwest of Catalina Island, and right now we're on a NOAA-funded cruise for the Ocean Exploration Cooperative Institute, And we have our partners from Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution out here with us. And they have 2 vehicles that are out here. One is called the Mesobot, and that's a mid-water AUV. And the second one is Nui, which is actually, we're not under ice, but it's a Nereid under ice vehicle. And that's a hybrid AUV and ROV. And significantly, we're testing out some really cool technology. One is the water column. We're talking about exploring the seabed, and the lake bed, but the water column is kind of the next frontier. And the Nui vehicle on these tests so far is really testing both the couple of things, high-res mapping from the vehicle, but also the telepresence and connecting scientists from on shore and connecting through other ways. So even though when it's in AUV mode, we can connect through an optical modem to the ship, and then the scientists ashore. Actually, the other day, a couple of days ago, we had them operating through that and through the telepresence, through the satellite connection. They were operating the manipulator on the vehicle from ashore, which is something really, this is really pushing the kind of technology forward. But maybe Erin can flip through just some of the live screens. Behind us, what you're seeing is we're in a studio that's in the control van, and you see behind us, Mesobot right now is in the water, and on its mission, it went in at 5 this morning. Well, that came out and then it went in again at 6, but it's been there and it'll be in till noon, and you're seeing on the screen at EK 80 sonar, fishery sonar there, the location, and they're monitoring a light level. So they're actually, by monitoring the isolume light level, they're actually staying at that one level now. And I'm not sure this has ever been done before, but it's they're in the water now. Erin, do you want to go to the control van? You can see so this is our control van setup. The back row is where all the science team are set up with controlling the vehicles. And then down in the front row to the right is our video folk, the navigator, and in this case, I think Dana Yerger, the lead scientist for the Mesobot, is down there. On deck, we'll see what's out there. Okay, and then this is the back deck right now. It's a beautiful day in Southern California. We've been blessed with the weather out here this time, and it's like hardly any swell and about 10 knots. In the vehicle, there you'll see the orange one is Nui. That was their they had a specific hybrid winch that they were testing. That's the big winch you see there with the thick yellow umbilical. But the doors are open on Nui there because within the vehicle they have a kind of protective cover, and then at the front, when they open it up, there it is there. They're manipulators and their suction pump and those sort of things. They also have cameras that are actually constructing a virtual view of what they're looking at on the seabed, and their goal eventually is to allow the scientists to be able to locate in that virtual space where they want to sample. So that's kind of some of the. Sorry, where do you want to go now?
And I just thought we'd show you the hangar. So this is our normal ROV hangar, but our ROVs are off to make room for this partnership. And it's the Nui's team is in there right now working, preparing for their afternoon dive. So as Mesobot's in the water, they're in there getting ready to go. And as soon as we get Mesobot up, we'll be putting Nui down. So it's been just amazing, active, collaborative expedition so far.
Yeah, it's been a great collaboration with the Hui team. And one of the interesting things to connect right to the mapping and the telepresence and being able to do things on the fly remotely is we have a high-res mapping system that was we've used before on Herc, but it was on Nui. Did a mapping the other day, and as they did the mapping, when they completed it, they then sent a snapshot up of the processed data as being automatically processed on board, and that's through another collaboration with the Roman Lab, and Chris Krasnowski wrote this from University of Rhode Island. They send a snapshot up, they looked at that, and then that was a broad view of the seabed at high resolution, but then they redirected the AUV to go back and do a high resolution mapping. And this was through optical modem to the AUV. So that was kind of this step forward, always trying to move forward with technology. And that was one of both the collaboration and the technical advancement in that. Sorry, go on.
No, yeah, I think that's pretty much a real good summary of what's happening out here. We're having a great time. It's been a really intense week of operations, and yeah, really great working with this team.
Yeah, and I think this, as Nicole mentioned, the collaboration between the groups is something that just OET, it's kind of in our DNA, if you like, and we do it. And that was one of the successes. I had the pleasure to be on the first mission up to Thunder Bay with the mapping team with the AUV and working locally with the Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary team. And one of the things that was really outstanding to me was to see the connection with the Thunder Bay, the National Marine Sanctuary, and the community. I think mostly we're offshore and really have to work hard at connecting the offshore science to the ocean to communities around the world. But up there, it's like they're right on your doorstep, and the connection was fantastic, and it was great to work with all the people that came by in the marina and those sorts of things. So I think it seems weird that we're offshore, and how would that relate to the lakes? But it's all the same, and really that key collaborations with the people that we can draw in to get this done, and then also making sure that everybody in the community knows what we're doing and how we're doing it. So OET, I think we keep pushing that, and we're trying to make sure we can get both the lakebed mapped and also the ocean map. Nicole, do you want to?
Yeah, thank you, Lindsay and Aaron. And I think, just to give folks another idea of what's going on. So these tech demos, this is the first of a series of tech demos. Next year, we'll be operating off of Hawaii, conducting tech demos with these instruments, these AUVs, but also with a group from University of Southern Mississippi who have autonomous surface vehicles, AUVs, autonomous underwater vehicles for seabed mapping. And the idea is to be able to operate these vehicles simultaneously, and also, again, pushing a lot of the operators, if we can, to shore, and pushing the data to shore so that more people can be involved in making decisions or viewing the data, just as we've done with the ROV dives in the past. So if folks are interested, during the break, they can go to nautiluslive.org and see what we're able to stream from autonomous systems. That's certainly something we're building up over these series of tech demos. And with that, anything else, Lindsay and Aaron, that you guys wanted to add?
No, Nicole, we're great, but we're here to support any questions that folks might have.
All right, well then, I'm happy to take questions if we have a little bit of time.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Ed Bailey. I am with Northwestern Michigan College in the Marine Center and serving as the moderator today for the first portion of this. And so first, thanks to all of you for your presentation. It was great. Always love to see a live feed, so it's very helpful. Also wanted to remind the audience that if you do have questions, please enter them into the question bar and we can get them up right away. Currently, we have a couple of them. The first one is, I think you mentioned that you have an under ice vehicle. Have you ever considered bringing that into the Great Lakes during the winter and performing operations there?
Yeah, so the under ice vehicle that Aaron and Lindsay were showing off on the back deck there is owned by Woods Hole Oceanographic, and the partnership that we have now is unique. It's a NOAA Ocean Exploration Cooperative Institute, but we're working with Woods Hole Oceanographic, University of Southern Mississippi, University of New Hampshire, the University of Rhode Island, to bring out technologies that could help advance ocean exploration, but certainly something that goes under ice would be useful for the lakes. This is, I believe, a deep diving system. And Aaron, if you could show the back deck view again, maybe people would get a sense for the scale. I don't know, Aaron, if you have a sense for the shallowest regions, it would be useful for operating, but it's used to being able to go pretty full ocean depth.
I actually don't have a good sense of shallow. We were going to do a shallow dive, and for us, shallow is 200 meters, though. So maybe not the same scale of shallow as the Great Lakes. But I assume that the kind of technology that they're putting into that instrument could be scaled to a shallow water system as well.
Again, just as a follow-up to the question, there's an interest in what happens under the ice in terms of currents, migration, and other that maybe at some point could be incredibly helpful. And then the last question we had was in terms of, you mentioned partnerships. You know, if we're interested in, so the question is basically, if you're interested in forming a partnership with the group, how is the best way to reach out to that?
I always think directly. I mean, for me as the chief scientist with a trust, people just email me and ask questions, ask how they could get involved, and it's always a little bit different. You know, we have a platform that we are funded to operate by mostly federal funding, and are always seeking partners. So, I think though academics probably go about partnerships in a slightly different way, but by looking for funding and ways to collaborate, and certainly reaching out to people who have technologies or who are developing technologies, they're often looking for ways to test them out in the field in a real situation and get valid data or validation data. And so I think it's just not being shy, I suppose, and reaching out and asking questions.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'd
Thanks.
follow up on that, Nicole. I think we've also tried to, as an example, on other cruises, when we're on transit and mapping, we've always reached out to people, and people have come and, oh, could you deploy beacons? As long as that doesn't interrupt on our main kind of cruise, like we've dropped wave riders, we've dropped a small boat that schools have built for the education passengers group, do current meters. We get diverted to do other things. So as long as it's not delaying and fits within our mission, that kind of is our mission, to collaborate and reach out to other scientists. So when we, I don't know, Nicole, you might have described the scientists ashore as well, how that's part of how we collaborate and form the mission. So that isn't another way that we do that. So Nicole, about the scientists ashore, maybe?
Yeah, sure. So our scientists who are involved in doing the analysis on data after an expedition are all just a network of people who volunteer their time or effort and are interested in what we do. They are successful usually in just adding on samples to an existing grant, or we're collecting samples and video data. They can write a grant to just process the data, but they're able to participate from the generation of the cruise plan or pre-generation of the cruise plan through the execution of the mission at sea. They're able to view the ROV dives in real time and chat with each other and the ship to ask for things. They're able to view, again, the data so that they can make decisions about what they'd like to request after the fact. But Nautilus makes its data and samples publicly available, and it's the network of scientists really that are working together to make the discoveries out of the data sets that we collect.